Good morning, everyone. It's Jenny here at Gertens, and today we're going to talk about fall lawn care. Fall is a great time to do a lot of things in our yard, and now that we're done with the fair, we've celebrated Labor Day, and the kids are off to school, we have some extra time to do that stuff. Still want to water your lawn, and you're going to continue to do that through October, weather depending. We live in Minnesota, so you never know. You're still going to want to mow your lawn while it's actively growing, and always mowing to 3 inches. On a side note, and we talk about this anytime we talk about turf, when you're watering your lawn, do not water at night. Water in the morning. It will prevent fungal diseases and issues from happening. By watering in the morning, you don't lose the evaporation from the sun and the heat of the day, and we still have warm afternoons in the fall. And by not watering at night, you don't get that humidity, and that's where fungal issues happen. Aerating, fall is a great time to aerate. There are 2 different types of aeration. There's mechanical aeration and microbial aeration. So a lot of you are familiar with the core aerators, the hollow tine, where you're just pushing into the ground. A lot of people will hire services to do this. It can be really labor intensive if you have a large area. And what it's doing is it's pulling the soil, it's pulling the plugs out, and it's allowing room for water, oxygen, and then better root growth. That's the point of aerating, and fall is the best time to aerate. And on that, once you do mechanical aeration, a lot of people will top dress with compost, just helping to add to the organic matter within your soil. Our Green Loon brand is a great compost. I highly recommend it. But this product, if you know me, I will not shut up about. C20 is a phenomenal product. And what it is it can replace mechanical aeration. It's called microbial aeration. And what it does is a carbon food source that feeds microbes that exist naturally in your soil. And by feeding them, it increases their activity, creating better macro spaces, helping them to decompose organic matter, making nutrients more plant available. This is something you can do in the spring and fall. It's really beneficial if you have areas where you can't mechanically aerate. A lot of times in the boulevard, which is usually like one of the worst spots for issues and everything, we don't get all the way to the edge. If you have irrigation lines and you're worried about breaking them, that's a great thing. You don't have the mess. It's a granular. It's also super good for your trees and your shrubs. Anyone in our lawn and garden department can tell you more about C20, but that's a really good product that I would highly recommend incorporating into your turf regimen. Another thing that's really good in the fall is to lay gypsum, especially if you have dogs. But along the boulevard, if you have a lot of dogs, if you're on a walking path, gypsum will help to break down the sodium content in urine, which can build up in the soil. So doing an application in the fall will help break that up. You want to water it in and really give it time to leach through. And you can do gypsum with anything. It doesn't matter if you're fertilizing, if you're laying C20. If you have a dog, you can do it a few times a year, but I would definitely do it in the fall to break that up. And then again in the spring after winter, after the snow melts and everything comes back. Fall is the best time for aerating, dethatching, and seeding. And you want to aerate and dethatch before you seed. When you dig out a piece, let's say like this big, you'll see the green growth and you'll see the transition. And then there's like this light area where it's part living, part decomposing. That's your thatch level. And you don't need to dethatch every year. I believe the U of M recommends if it's greater than an inch you want to dethatch. Something you could do every 2 to 3 years. It's a good practice. And there's some things we'll talk about that you can do to reduce your thatch layer. But the problem is when it gets too thick is it actually impedes water and nutrients from getting to the soil. And you can kind of tell if your grass, now this is beautiful, or commercial folks take nice care of their lawn. You can just see if it's thin, it's not looking as healthy, it's not as green. Dethatching is a good thing to do. And fall's a really good time to do it because our cool season turf grasses grow vigorously in the spring and the fall. They don't like that hot weather. So when air temperatures are between 55 and 75, they're growing strong. And thatching does stress it out, right? It's like an injury. You could use a rake like this that we also recommend when you're overseeding. right? And it just, now this grass is a little wet, so I'm not going to get into it, but that'll help just loosen up loose debris. We also have something that's a little more hardcore, a thatching rake like this. You could do this on a annual basis. We also rent here at Gerton's in our brickyard up from the main garden center. We rent machines that are way bigger and powerful. So if you have a big thatch issue, if you dig out that sample and you have a really thick one, I would recommend doing that. Doing this to a large area is very labor intensive. So renting it for a day, being done with it, and you will not believe the amount of stuff that comes out of it. Another thing you can do is like a preventative measures. Over applying pesticides can lead to deeper thatch, and that can be from just killing off microbial populations, because then they're not decomposing all that thatch. If you mow your grass, you want to only take like a third off. I'm a big fan of leaving clippings and even like mulching like light leaves. But if you let it grow really long and you have clumps, you want to get rid of that. That'll add to it. Humic acid is a great thing you can do to prevent thatch from building up. I like the liquid because it's easy. You attach it to the end of your hose. You can do this, like this little bottle covers 5,000 square feet. You can do this like every 6 weeks in the growing season. And what it does is it just helps to break down that organic matter faster. So it's also making nutrients more available to your plants. You're naturally fertilizing your lawn. And it also comes in granular for people who prefer granular. That you're only going to do spring and fall application. So once you've aerated and you thatch, fall is the best time to seed. And really we're looking like mid-August to late September. After late September, you're kind of pushing it from when the grass can germinate to possibly getting a hard frost and hurting the young little grass. One other thing I want to talk about is if your lawn is just not doing well, hands down, I would do the C20. I am a huge proponent of soil tests. You bring home, you register online, you stick it in the mail, postage is done, and it comes back and tells you all the macro and micronutrients you're deficient in. So then you know what your lawn needs. Back to seeding. So fall's a great time to seed. You don't have to water as often. You still want to keep the soil moist, but you want to do a starter fertilizer. Our new BioStarter Plus is awesome. We've seen phenomenal results with this. This little bag covers 800 square feet. We also have a big one that covers 4,000. Laying that down really helps that grass seed get a boost and gives it what it needs. Another thing for fall seeding is you want to make sure that you're picking out a blend that has all perennial grasses, because the annual grasses won't survive winter. So I grabbed our sun and shade, and we don't have that many that are annual. There's certain purposes for annual. Like in the spring, you need quick germination. You're trying to prevent runoff. But you want to make sure on the label that you're seeing the perennial by the ryegrass and that it doesn't have an annual in it. And a lot of times in fall, we're just patching areas. If you have large areas, our lawn and garden experts come into the store. They can talk about the kind of soil, what your watering regimen is, if it's sloped, to really help you do right seeding. But for like little areas, I really like using shakers for small areas. Something like this where you can go a little bigger, just for uniformity. Or one of my favorite handheld spreaders is this guy. And I like it because it supports your wrist. Fescues, you're going to see it a little heavier than bluegrass and ryegrass. So we're watering our grass. We're still mowing our grass. We've aerated, dethatched, seeded. Fall's the best time to do broadleaf weed control too. The weeds and plants will start taking the sugars that they make through photosynthesis and drawing them into the roots and rhizomes. So when you spray those weeds with an herbicide, it's pulling it down and you're going to get a better kill. I would wait a little longer. You can do that into October, especially for hard weeds like Creeping Charlie. You want to wait till like that first frost, not like a hard frost where it's killing things, but when the air temperature is about 32 degrees, first time overnight, go out and spray it. And those, because then the leaves are like, okay, we're getting ready for winter, and they're drying everything down. On that note, if you've already done broadleaf weed control, you want to look at the label, because depending on what herbicide you applied, there is an interval for reseeding. If you have hard weeds to kill, like quackgrass, even annual bluegrass, the best option a lot of times is to kill the entire area. because in order to kill that kind of grass, weedy grasses, you have to kill your grass. So you have to kind of decide whether mechanical removal is the best option, but our people in Lawn and Garden can help you with that. If you have an entire area to prepare, glyphosate will kill weeds and grass, and you can reseed after 7 days. It doesn't translocate in the soil, so that is good. You still have to be careful of any desirable plants with any herbicide. We do also have a non-selective organic, or I should say natural, weed killer. That's going to take a little longer and probably multiple applications, but definitely a good product to consider. For weeds in your turf, where you don't want, where you want to save the existing grass, something for harder weeds like creeping Charlie and whatnot, something with triclopyr is really effective. T-zone is a really good one. Now, if you're not comfortable mixing and using a sprayer, there is also Weed-Free Zone from Fertilizing. We recommend this a lot. It comes in concentrate, ready to use, but the 2,4-D with the dicamba and the carfentrazone is also really effective on a ton of broadleaf weeds. And then, not to forget mentioning, we also do have a all-natural lawn weed brew that's safe for your lawns and does a really good job and is effective on broadleaf weeds. If you're reseeding, you're not going to want to treat these areas until you've mowed them 2 or 3 times, so depending on timing, that might not be an option. If you have no seeding to do, winter fertilizing is super important, fall fertilizing. A lot of people have already done what we call step 3, which is our turf special, and it's just a good thing to feed your lawn after the heat and stress of summer. It's actively growing. It's got iron and sulfur in it that's going to help green up your lawn. If you've already done that, or if you haven't done that, you could do that now and then wait on your winterizer a little bit, but hands down, you want to apply a winterizer. Really through like mid-October, you can lay that down, weather depending, right? It might even go a little later than that. Potassium helps with the cell wall and overall vigor of grass. And by laying that in the winter, it's going to help your lawn come back so strong in the spring. And really, besides herbicides, and trying to do less, and the best thing you can do to prevent weeds is have a thick, lush lawn. So doing C20, laying gypsum, fertilizing, giving it the nutrients it needs, helping to reduce your thatch layer. Those are all things that are going to really help your lawn look great. One last thing for fall lawn care is we've had a lot of people with vole and mole damage this year. This spring, it was crazy, and I think it had to do with the drought, that we just saw different animal habits than we've seen. And so the fall is another good time to apply repellents for moles and voles. I love the Scram products. They stand by their products. They have a really good formulation. But by doing it now, as they start to look for areas to overwinter, they're not going to choose your turf. That's it. There's a lot of things, and there's a lot more detail to all of these things, but our folks in Lawn and Garden are so knowledgeable, and they are here to help you, and they love helping you.